You said you feared death at your lowest point. What was the lowest point?
It was November 1st of 2017, and then Thanksgiving Day of that same year.
So let's talk about it. Let's talk about this dark time. Let's talk about the sexual allegations against you that led to you being canceled by, the entire world for the last 7 years. I would like to personally understand the sins, the bad things you did, and the bad things you didn't do. So I also should say that the thing I hope to do here is to give respect to due process. Innocent until proven guilty, that the mass hysteria machine of the internet and clickbait journalism doesn't do. So here's what I understand. There were criminal and civil trials brought against you, including the one that started it all when Anthony Rapp sued you for $40 million. In these trials, you were acquitted, found not guilty, and not liable. Is that right?
Yes.
I think that's really important, again, in terms of due process. And I read a lot, and I watched a lot in preparation for this on this point, including, of course, the recently detailed interviews you did with Dan Wooten and then Allison Pearson of The Telegraph. And those are all focused on this topic, and they go in detail where you respond in detail to many of the allegations. If people are interested in the details, they can listen to those. So based on that and everything I looked at, as I understand, you never prevented anyone from leaving if they wanted to, sort of in a sexual context, for example, by blocking the door. Is that right?
That's correct, yeah.
You always respected the explicit no from people, again, in the sexual context. Is that right?
That is correct.
You've never done anything sexual with an underage person, right?
Never.
And also, as is sometimes done in Hollywood, let me ask this. You've never explicitly offered to exchange sexual favors for career advancement, correct?
Correct.
In terms of bad behavior, what did you do? What was the worst of it? And how often did you do it?
I have heard, and now quite often, that everybody has a Kevin Spacey story. And what that tells me is that I hit on a lot of guys.
How often did you cross the line? And what does that mean to you?
I did a lot of horsing around. I did a lot of things that at the time I thought were sort of playful and fun. And I have learned since were not. And I have had to recognize that I crossed some boundaries and I did some things that were wrong and I made some mistakes. And that's in my past. I mean, I've been working so hard over these last 7 years to have the conversations I needed to have, to listen to people, to understand things from a different perspective than the one that I had, and to say, I will never behave that way again for the rest of my life.
Just to clarify, I think you're often too pushy with the flirting. And that manifests itself in multiple ways. But just to make clear, you never prevented anyone from leaving if they wanted to. You always took the explicit no from people as an answer. No, stop. You took that for the answer. You've never done anything sexual with an underage person. And you've never explicitly offered to exchange sexual favors for career advancement. These are some of the sort of accusations that have been made, and in the court of law, multiple times have been shown not to be true.
But I have had a sexual life, and I've fallen in love, and I've been so admiring of people that I mean, I'm so romantic. I'm such a romantic person that there's this whole side of me that hasn't been talked about, isn't being discussed, but that's who I know. That's the person I know. It's been very upsetting to hear that some people have said, I mean, I don't have a violent bone in my body, but to hear people describe things as having been very aggressive is incredibly difficult for me. And I'm deeply sorry that I ever offended anyone or hurt anyone in any way. It is crushing to me, and I have to work very hard to show and to prove that I have learned, I got the memo, and I will never, ever, ever behave in those ways again.
From everything I've seen in public interactions with you, people love you. Colleagues love you. Coworkers love you. There's a flirtatiousness. Another word for that is chemistry. There's a chemistry between the people you work with.
And by the way, not to take anything away from my accountability for things I did where I got it wrong, I crossed the line, I pushed some boundaries, I accept all of that. But I live in an industry in which flirtation, attraction, people meeting in the workspace and ending up marrying each other and having children. And so it is a space and a place where these notions of family, these notions of attraction, these notions of it's always complicated if you meet someone in the workspace and find yourselves attracted to each other. You have to be mindful of that, and you have to be very mindful that you don't ever want anyone to feel that their job is in jeopardy, or you would punish them in some way if they no longer wanted to be with you. So those are important things to just acknowledge.
Another complexity to this, as I've seen, is that there's just a huge number of actors that look up to you, a huge number of people in the industry that look up to you. So and love you. I've seen just from this documentary, just a lot of people just love being around you, learning from you what it means to create great theater, great film, great stories. And so that adds to the complexity. I wouldn't say it's a power dynamic like a boss-employee relationship. It's a admiration dynamic that is easy to miss and easy to take advantage of. Is that something you understand?
Yes. And I also understand that there are people who met me and spent a very brief period of time with me, but presumed I was now going to be their mentor, and then behaved in a way that I was unaware of, that they were either participating or flirting along or encouraging me without me having any idea that at the end of the day, they were expecting something. So these are about relationships. These are about two people. These are about people making decisions, people making choices, and I accept my accountability in that. But there are a number of things that I've been accused of that just simply did not happen, and I can't say, and I don't think it would be right for me to say, well, I everything that's ever been I've been accused of is true, because we've now proved that it isn't and it wasn't. But I'm perfectly willing to accept that I had behaviors that were wrong and that I shouldn't have done, and I am regretful for.
I think that's also speaks to dark side of fame. The sense I got is that there are some people, potentially a lot of people, trying to make friends with you in order to get roles, in order to advance their career. So not you using them, but they trying to use you. What's that like? How do you know if somebody likes you, for Kevin, or likes you for, like you said you're a romantic. You see a person and you're like, I like this person. And they seem to like you. How do you know if they like you for you?
Well, to some degree, I would say that I have been able to trust my instincts on that, and that I've most of the time been right. But obviously, in the last number of years, not just with people who've accused me, but just also people in my own industry, to realize that, oh, I thought we had a friendship, but I guess that was about an inch thick and not what I thought it was. But look, one shouldn't be surprised by that. I have to also say, you said a little while ago that the world had canceled me, and I have to disagree with you. I have to disagree because For 7 years, I've been stopped by people, sometimes every day, sometimes multiple times a day. And the conversations that I have with people, the generosity that they share, the kindness that they show, and how much they want to know when I'm getting back to work, tells me that while there may be a very loud minority, there is a quieter majority.
In the industry, have you been betrayed in life? And how do you not let that make you cynical?
I think betrayal is a really interesting word. But I think if you're going to be betrayed, it has to be by those who truly know you. And I can tell you that I have not been betrayed.
That's a beautiful way to put it. For the times you cross the line, do you take responsibility for the wrongs you've done?
Yes.
Are you sorry to the people you may have hurt emotionally?
Yes. And I have spoken to many of them
Privately.
which is where amends should be made.
Were they able to start finding forgiveness?
Absolutely. Some of the most moving conversations that I have had when I was determined to take accountability have been those people who said, thank you so much. And I think I can forgive you now.
If you got a chance to talk to the Kevin Spacey of 30 to 40 years ago, what would you tell him to change about his ways? And how would you do it? What would be your approach? Would you be nice about it? Would you smack him around?
I think if I were to go back that far, I probably would have found a way to not have been as concerned about my revealing my sexuality and hiding that for as long as I did. I think that had a lot to do with confusion and a lot to do with mistrust, both my own and other people's.
For most of your life, you were not open with the public about being gay. What was the hardest thing about keeping who you love a secret?
That I didn't find the right moment of celebration to be able to share that.
That must be a thing that weighs on you, to not be able to fully celebrate your love.
You know, Ian McKellen said after 40, he was 49 when he came out. 27 years he'd been a professional actor, being in the closet. And he said he felt it was like he was living a part of his life not being truthful, and that he felt that it affected his work when he did come out because he no longer felt like he had anything to hide. And I absolutely believe that that is what my experience has been and will continue to be. I am sorry about the way I came out, but Evan and I had already had the conversation. I had already decided to come out, and so it wasn't like, I was forced to come out, but it was something I decided to do. And by the way, much against Evan's advice, I came out in that statement, and he wishes that I had not done so.
Yeah, you made a statement when the initial accusation happened. That could be up there as one of the worst social media posts of all time. So it's like 2 for 1.
Don't hold back. Now, come on. Really tell me how
The
you
first
feel.
part, you kind of implicitly admitted to doing something bad, which was later shown and proved completely to never have happened. It was a lie.
No, I basically said that I didn't remember what this person was, that Anthony Rapp was claiming from 31 years before. I had no memory of it. But if it had happened, if this embarrassing moment had happened, then I would owe him an apology. That was what I said. And then I said, And while I'm at it, I think I'll come out. And it was definitely not the greatest coming out party ever. I will admit
But
that.
from the public perception, the first part of that. So first of all, the second part is a horrible way to come out. Yes, we all agree. And then the first part, from the public viewpoint, they see guilt in that, which also is tragic because at least that particular accusation, and it's a very dramatic one, it's a $40 million lawsuit, it's a big deal, and an underage person was shown to be false.
Well, but you're melding two things together. The lawsuit didn't happen until 2020,
Yes.
and then it didn't get to court until 2022. We're back in 2017 when it was just an accusation he made in BuzzFeed magazine. Look, I was backed into a corner. When someone says, you were so drunk you won't remember this thing happened, what's your first instinct? Is your first instinct to say this person's a liar? Or is your first instinct to go, what? What? 31 years at a party I don't even remember throwing? Obviously, a lot of investigation happened after that, in which we were then able to prove in that court case that it had never occurred. But at the moment, I was sort of being told I couldn't push back. You have to be kind. You can't. I think, even to me now, none of it sounds right. But I don't know that I could have said anything that would have been satisfactory to anybody.
Okay. Well, there's a almost convincing explanation for the worst social media post of all time. I almost accept it.
I'm really surprised. I guess you haven't read a lot of media posts, because I can't believe that's the actual worst one.
It's beautifully bad. Is how bad that social media post is. As you mentioned, Liam Neeson and Sharon Stone came out in support of you recently, speaking to your character. A lot of people who know you, and some of whom I know, who have worked with you privately, show support for you, but are afraid to speak up publicly. What do you make of that? I mean, to me personally, this just makes me sad because perhaps that's the nature of the industry, that it's difficult to do that, but I just wish there would be a little bit more courage in the world.
I don't think it's about the industry. I think it's about our time. I think it's the time that we're in, and people are very afraid.
Just afraid, just a general
No,
fear.
they're literally afraid that they're going to get canceled if they stand up for someone who has been. And I think we've seen this many times in history. This is not the first time it's happened.